Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In this session, we will start 7.3, which is part of arrays. And in this chapter, 7.3, it talks about an array in classes to represent a list. Just before we start the concept of how to have arrays inside the classes, we need to note a concept of partially filled arrays. So let's assume we have the following. If you have integer bracket list equals a new integer bracket 5, the meaning of this, we are creating an array of size 5. So I will have list as an array, and we will have 5 locations, and the index will go from 0 up to 4. But actually, the array will have no elements so far. So this is an empty array. And to know that how many elements I have in my array, I will create another variable. I will call it integer number of items. And because I have no items, no values in my array, I will initialize it to 0. So this is to represent the actual number of elements in the array. And that's why here we have number of items as 0. So here we have to distinguish between two things, between the length of the array, which is 5, as created when we declared the array, and how many elements we are actually saving. I'm saving nothing so far, so that's why number of items as 0. If I have a statement that says list bracket 0 equals 100, it means I'm adding one value to the array. So it means in my array I will have 100. Now, because I have 100, it means the number of items should not be 0. Actually, it should be 1. So that's why I have to say number of items plus plus. If I also say list of 1 equals 200, it means I'm adding another value. So here in location 0, I have 100. In location 1, I have 200. And that's why I have to say number of items plus plus. So it means number of items will be 2. So initially it was 0. We added 100. So number of items, then it become 1. We added 200. Number of items will become as 2. So whenever we add an item, we will increment the number of items to represent how many values we have. So here, if you have system.out.println list.length, this is the physical length of the array, which will be always 2. But if you say system.out.println number of items, this is how many elements we are currently having in our array, which is in our case is 2, because I have only 2 elements. From the beginning, if I have a statement here saying system.out.println number of items, it will print 0, because at the beginning the array is have no elements, so it's 0. If you have only one item and you say print number of items, it will print 1. So the number of items, it could go as follow. Number of items, it could start from 0, where your array is empty because you have no elements, or it could be 1 if you have 1 element, 2, 3, 4, or the maximum thing is 5. And why we say 5 is maximum thing? Because the array length of that we defined is of size 5. So we start from 0, which means empty, and we can have 5, which means our array is 5. So if you have an empty array, it means you have no elements. You have full array, معناتها the array is full, and you cannot add any more elements. So this is the starting point of this session. We need to know that once we declare the array, always we have a number indicating the number of elements, the number of locations we have in our array, and we call this as physical size. But actually, in most cases, we don't use all the locations. So for example, if I say I have integer brackets list equals a new integer and between a bracket 100, this is a very big array of 100 locations. And maybe I'm not using the 100 locations. I need to use only, for example, 3 or 10 of these locations. So that's why we need to create another variable. We call it number of items, count, whatever the name you prefer. And initially it will start from 0 because the first time you create your array will be 0. Whenever you have a new item, you have to increase this count. So it will start from 0 and 1, 2 till you reach the full amount of your array. Now let's apply this concept in a full class where we have a class. We should have an array inside the class. We will start with an empty array, and then once we move, we will have to increment and add elements. So here it says create a class. The name of the class is list class. So this is the name of the class. We should have 2 private members. I should have list as an array of string, and I should have number of items to represent how many elements we have in the array. So we will create the array. We will create the class. So here I have public class, list class. I should have 2 private members. So I should have private keyword. The first one, as it was mentioned, I should have list as an array of a string. So it means I should have the data type as string. We should have a bracket, and the name of the array is list. And the second thing, I should have, according to the question, number of item as an integer to represent how many elements in the array. So I will have here integer number of items. Now here you will notice that we say string bracket list and then finally the semicolon. There is no need to say here equals a new string and for example 10 here. Should not be done in this step because in the private members within the class, what we specify the following: the private, which is the access, the data type, and then the name of the member. Here it's an array, so that's why I need a bracket. Similarly, for number of items, it's a private, the data type is integer, and number of items is the member name. Now we can go to the methods. So according to the class, it says you should have default constructor, and this constructor is to create the list as an array of size 10 and initialize number of items to 0. So you have to create a constructor. A constructor, we will just say public and then the name of the class, which is list class, and I should have empty bracket because this is a default constructor. So we should have no parameters. Within the default constructor, what we need to do, we need to initialize list and we need to initialize number of items. So here list should be equal new string, and according to the question, the size by default is 10. Because you have just created this new array, it means how many elements you are currently saving. You are saving nothing, and that's why I have to say number of items equal 0. So this is the first constructor we have. The second constructor, a constructor with parameter max size, to create a list of size max size and initialize number of items to 0. So I will do the same thing. So I will copy the first one, the default constructor. But here instead of the default one, so let's just have the naming here. So the first one is the default constructor. The second one, we have a constructor with parameter. So here the constructor should have parameter, and according to the question, it should have integer max size. What is the meaning of this constructor? In the previous one, because you have no values, it means when you create your array, the size of the array should be 10. Here, because you have max size, and this is sent as a parameter, then you have to use this one as the size of the array. So instead of 10, I have to say max size. So if max size is 8, it means the array will be created of size 8. If max size is 100, it means the array will be created of size 100. So this is the first difference. Between default constructor, always the array will be created as size 10 because you didn't specify the value. If you specify the value, it means the other constructor will be used, and according to the value, your array will be created. Now, in both cases, always this is a new array. So whether the array is of size 10 or whether the array is of max size, always this is a new array. So always number of item will be 0, and also here number of items will be 0. We have two methods, is full, is empty. Is full, it will return true if the array is full, otherwise it will return false. Is empty, it will return true if the list is empty or otherwise. So let's do is empty first because it's quite straightforward. So as usual, we have public, and the return type, we will just leave the return type now, we will think about it. The name of the method is empty, and we will take no parameter. And here, what is expected? I have to return either true or false. So we have an if condition, and if it is true, then we have to say here return true. Otherwise, I will have to say else, and I will say return false. So how can I find if my array is empty or my array is not empty? As we discussed, it depends on the number of items. So I will have a condition here. I will say if number of items equal 0, it means the array is empty. That's why we will return true. If number of items is not 0, if it is 1, if it is 8, it means it's not empty. So we will return false. Now, because you have to return either true or false, it means you have to specify the return type as Boolean. And we have the other method is full. So as we discussed here, if this is our array list, whatever the size of the array, we have another variable called number of items. So if the value is 0, it means I have nothing there. So it means the array will be as empty. How can I check if the array is full or not? Let's assume that the array was created as only of size 3 elements. So I know that the length of my array is actually 3. So here, if I add one item, for example 10, the number of items will be 1. If we add another item 20, the number of items will be 2 because I have 2 items. If I add 30, the number of items will be 3. And this is the full array. I cannot add more items. So if you reach that the array number of items is 3, it means this is a full array. And how can I check if it is full or not? We will have to say if number of items is equal to the length of the array. So here we will go to our coding, and we will have the method of is full. So I'll copy this, the same thing, because again we will have an if condition, but we will do the full thing. So here I will say is full, and here number of items equal. I have to know the length of my array. So how to know the length of any array? Always we just say list dot length. So if number of item is 3 and the length is 3, then we say return true, which means the array is full. So again, this says we return Boolean because either we return true or false. There is another way that we can return this method. Instead of saying if and else, we can just simply write return here and remove everything else, and we will have a semicolon there. So what does it mean? So these exactly are the same thing. The first one with if and else will do exactly the same job as only one statement. Because here, if you say number of items double equal list of length, this is a comparison. So it's more like we are saying, is number of items equal length? If it is equal, it means true, so we will return true. If it is not equal, it means false, so we will return false. Both of them are correct, so you can use the if and else and it will work properly, or you can use the one statement and it will give you the same job. So in your textbook, it is written as one statement. Let's have it as an exercise. We will have the if else because I think most of us, we are used to the use of if and else. So we have done so far the default constructor is full and is empty. Now we have a method that says is on list that takes as parameter string y and returns true if y is on the list, otherwise it should return false. So we will write this one. So the method is public. It will return either true or false, so we'll have to say Boolean. The name is onList. This is the name of the method. According to the question, it will take string y. What is expected in this method? We need to do a search. We need to search for this y in the array. Is it in the array or not? So if we will think about it, so let's have an array. So let's assume that actually the array as follow. I have, this is the list, and it's actually was created of size 3. And I have, for example, ABC, XYZ. So I have only 2 elements because it's an array of a string, which means now the number of items, because I have only 2 elements, it will be as 2. When you call the method and you say, go and call the method as on list, you have to send a parameter. So for example, I will send the value ABC. And this ABC will be sent as the y parameter. So the value of y will be as ABC. Now what I have to do, I have to go and search, do we have this value inside the array? If it is there, we have to return true. If it is not there, we have to return false. So what we have to do, we have to start a loop from location 0, and I have to compare the element at location 0 with the value inside y. If they are equal, we will say return true. Otherwise, I have to go to the second element till we finish, and then we will say return false. So it means the coding now, we know that because we need to do a search, I should have a loop. So I will say integer I equals 0. I should be less than. Now, usually what we do, we say I should go up to last dot length. So this is usually what we do in a for loop. But let's think about it here. If I say I less than less dot length, it means it will go up to the value 3. But we don't have 3 elements in our array. We have only 2. So that's why I have to use number of items. So instead of less dot length, I have to say number of items. Otherwise, if the array is very big, for example, size 100, it means I will just go 100 for elements and all of them are empty, so I'm just wasting my time. So I will go there and I will say I less than number of items, and then I plus plus. What we need to do inside the loop, I need to do an if condition. So I will say go and check if the array at location I equals the element I'm looking for. So go to location 0, is it the same as y? Go to location 1, is it the same as y? Just a small thing we have to remember that y is a string and the array is of type string as well. So we cannot use the double equal. I have to remove the equal, and then we have to put y between brackets, and just here we have to say equals, and if I need to ignore case, I'll just say ignore case. So this is only for a string. So this is just if you say double equal for integer, for double, for float, just remove it and replace it with equals, ignore case. Now, if you find your element, what do you have to do? You have to say it's found, which is true. So you have to say return true. And this will end the loop. So here, for example, if we apply it, so here, if we apply it, I just copied the same code for integer I equals 0, I list the number of items, I plus plus. If list of I equals ignore case y, then return true. So starting from I equals 0, so we will have I at location 0. I should be less than number of items, which is in our case is 2, so this is true. Go and check the if condition, if list of location 0. So I0, go list location 0, which is in our case is ABC. Is it equal to the value of y, which is in our case is ABC? So are they equal? Yes. So what I have to say, I have to say return true. So this is within the method. So whenever you have true, you will exit the method and you will go to the main program and you will return true. So even if you have here many statements written, you will ignore all of them. All of them will be just ignored and you will finish your program. Now let's assume that the item we are looking for is not there. So let's assume I'm having the value of y is actually as MW. Now again, we will start from I equals 0. And then I, is it less than the number of item, which is 2? Yes. So go to list at location 0. Is it the same as y? Y we have it as MW. And the value here we have it at location 0, which is ABC. ABC, is it the same as MW? It's not. So I will go to the other I. With the other I, we are moving to location 1. So 1, is it less than 2? True. We have to go inside. Go to location 1. The value of location 1 is XYZ. Is it the same as MW? Again, it's not. So we will go back, increment I. I will be as 2. 2, is it less than 2? False. So you notice here, even if I have Empty locations, I will not check the locations because I check only up to the number of items. And here we stop. So you will stop the loop and you will come to this statement because you will end the for loop, which means you finish your array and the element is not there. So what do you have to do? Simply, you have to write a statement return false, which means we finish all the elements in the array and we couldn't find the element we are looking for. So simply here, just after the loop, we will say return false. So this is the method. It will take a while. It will start from the beginning till number of items. And then we will go up to number of items. Remember, we will not use list.length because I'm not using the whole length. I'm using how many items actually I'm saving. And then we will check if it is equal to y. And remember, we will not use double equal because this is a string. If you find it, just simply say return true. If you finish the for loop and the element is not there, so that's why we have to say return false. Remember the common mistake, do not say here else, return false. If you say if you find it, return true, else return false, it means you will not search for the whole array, you will search only for the first element. So always this is a common mistake, and remember you have to search. When you finish the for loop, then you can say return false. One small thing we can add is, if the array is empty, we don't need to do any search. So I can have an if statement. I can say if number of items is actually 0, we can have a message, for example, system.out.println, and we can say empty array. So there is no need to search. And then we can have this, the other part as in the else. But even if you don't include this statement, still it will, if it is the number of items as 0, it will come here and it will say starting I0, 0 less than 0, so it will return false. So it will do the same job. So this statement you can just leave it for now. Now we are done with is on list. We have 2 more methods, which is add item and the printing method. So we will talk about adding item and the printing method within the next session.